See everybody here this morning. So great to see you. Welcome to our people watching online, and if you're watching us on Facebook, we're very grateful for your presence and this new system we have of spreading our energy even across the internet and the technology. That just makes it so great that other people are with us. So I invite you just to take a minute and just get comfortable in your chair for a moment of prayer and meditation. Just get comfortable. Let's feel the chair fully supporting your body. And just be. You can have your hands on your lap or on your thighs. No special position. If you don't meditate frequently, if you don't have a meditation practice, the goal of meditation is to just be. To just be for a few moments. We don't stop long enough to do that in our busy, busy lives. Just be. Another way of saying that is to just sit. Just sit right now for a few moments and just be. And as you still your body, I invite you to turn your attention to your breath. Take a deep breath in with me now. Inhale, silence. Exhale, peace. Another inhale. Inhale, stillness. Exhale, light. And one more deep breath. Inhaling stillness and peace and light, and releasing love. For as we sit in these places of quietness and stillness, when we go into our room and shut the door, we truly can find the peace that we are, the love that we are. So from this place of intuitive knowing of who you are and who you have come here to be and who you are right now, from this place of intuitive knowing, that source, the source of all, flows through you, as you, and in you right now. Just as Denise Rozier was saying this morning about the light, you are the light. You are the light. To many, you are the light of the world. The people who cross your path, you are the light. So in these few moments of mindful meditation, just still your mind to feel this awesome, this awe and wonder of this present of who you have come here to be. As we've stilled the body, we quiet the mind for a few moments. Don't try to stop the thoughts, just be still and quiet. If you find yourself attached to a thought, just release it gently and come back to the breath. Hold your stillness, hold your thoughts, and just be. As we enter the silence for a couple moments, I invite you just to go deeper into your meditation, deeper into this stillness. And again, focus on the breath. Meditation is about if we get detached, we return to the breath. Return to the breath. Inhale, exhale. Inhale and exhale. So as we sit in this peaceful place for a few moments in the silence, I just invite you to go deeper. Go deeper. In the silence. In the silence. In the silence. So now take one more deep breath in as you feel this connection to the one, to the all, to the source of our being. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And we reinforce that and acknowledge that and grow into that and expand into that when we go within the silence and rest in the truth of our being. So now as you breathe gently, and you can begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. Return your body to this room, to this time and place. And when you're ready, if you've closed your eyes, you can open them whenever you're comfortable. Techniques for abundant living. What in the world does that mean? How do we do that? Any ideas? Well, a new monk arrives at a monastery, and he is assigned to help the other monks copy an ancient text by hand. He notices, though, that they're copying copies. So that's the way they did it. They've done it for hundreds of years. So the new monk goes to the head monk and asks him about this. Why are you copying copies? And he said, we just keep copying these manuscripts blindly. We could we could recopy errors that have been made by us. Well, the head monk looks at the young, enthusiastic young monk and shakes his head and says, we've been copying from these copies for centuries, for hundreds of years. But he decides to humor the young monk, and he goes down into the cellar where the old manuscripts are with one of the copies, and he's going down to check it. Hours and hours and hours go by, and the old monk doesn't come back up. So finally, the young monk says, he goes downstairs into the cellar looking for him. As he descends the stairs, he finds the old monk sitting with his hand in his face, sobbing uncontrollably. Sobbing. What is wrong? The young monk says. The elder monk looks up, tears flowing from his face, and he said, the word is celebrate, not celibate. It was celebrate. Celebrate. The word is celebrate. Live life abundantly. Celebrate your life. Celebrate. So how in the world does that story have a connection to living abundantly? I think it's about celebration. We're in the flow and we celebrate life. The connection to this story brought back all kinds of memories and other thoughts of ancient texts and mistranslations. There's a world of mistranslations that have happened from the Bible and other ancient texts. So many times we go to the cellar with our thoughts, our beliefs, our paradigms. This is our own cellar, our blockages, and discover clarity. We say that it is no longer the truth for me. We find new truth. Charles Fillmore famously says, I've reserved the right to change my mind. Charles Fillmore is a great teacher and the co-founder in Unity, and so he says, I reserve the right to change my mind. And we say that, as part of the Unity teachings. So these layers of copy and translations are part of what blocks us from our highest good, from our true self, blocks us from source. Totally can block us from source. We forget who we are. We forget who we come here to be. So these layers and layers and layers are heaped up on us after birth into this manifestation. Not intentionally, but we have so many people in our lives that can block us, that create blocks based on their blockage from the truth of who we are. So what are your teachings and beliefs, what have been your teachings about abundance? And even what is abundance? Is it just money? Is it just having money? So in most of these books that we study in Unity, there's very, very, very little mention of money. Abundance is about a way of living, about life, about being connected, being authentic to who you are. We live life abundantly by knowing the truth of our true being. Eric Butterworth says this not only in this book. This is a small book, The Quest for Truth by Eric Butterworth, a noted teacher, 35 years he was a minister in New York. This was his first book, but all of his other books, Spiritual Economics, Discover the Power Within You, In the Flow of Life, and others. So there's another one here that I've recently picked back up, The Concentric Perspective, another perspective of giving. We open our hearts, we open our minds when we give. So it's challenging for me to talk about abundance until we answer the questions from what we learned last week about what Eric Butterworth said about the questions that we go into ourselves to find. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the presence of God in me when we talk about that? What is the source within me? So Butterworth says in every one of his books that traditionally we, the traditional church, has missed the mark. Missed the mark about the true teachings of Jesus. We follow the teachings of Jesus, use Jesus as a master teacher and other spiritual masters. But we've been another layer and a block to us, to our consciousness, is some of the teachings that have been going on for years and years in the traditional religious settings. Release and let go of all the labels that come to your mind about who you are. When I asked you these questions, who am I, why am I here? Release all the labels that come to your mind, probably 100 labels. I'm Bob, I'm Karen Pauline, I'm Becky. Release, I'm a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm a father. Release them all. Release all those labels and go within to see who your true self is. Your ego mind will stop you from doing that, or try to stop you from doing that, because the ego wants you to be blocked just who it is. That's just the way it works. Release any belief of separation between you and the divine. Release any belief of separation. I think I've shared with you already, even just as recently as from the burning bowl. That's what I wrote. That's what I put in the fire to release. Release any belief, any shred of belief that I'm separate from the one, separate from God. So go within to answer these questions. Who am I here? Why am I here? What is mine to do? And the biggest question, why? So go within to answer these questions. We know from studying Living Untethered, Michael Singer says, you are not your thoughts. You are not you are not your feelings. You are not what comes into consciousness of world events. That is not who you are. You are the observer of those objects of consciousness. So we practice meditation, the theory of the inquiry, self-inquiry, to see and to know who we truly are. The mystics, one of the things we taught last year in several books was the mystics. We're learning to see as the mystics see. And the mystics see God, Source, as the one power inside of each one of us. That's what we say in principle number 1. In The Universe is Calling, Eric Butterworth points out a faulty translation from John 24, and I could go on and on and on about these. I'm just going to mention this one. John 8:24 says, if you believe that I am not he, you shall die in your sins. So traditionally for 2,000 years, or 1,900 years since the Gospels were about when they were originally published, the word he was added to the translation, to the manuscript. And the report is they've got enough evidence of this. The first translators who translated it couldn't understand what Jesus was saying. if you believe that I am, you shall not die in your sins. And we know sin's missing the mark, and the I am is each one of us. Each one of us is the I am consciousness. But they didn't understand that. So, to add clarity to the statement, they added the word he. They added the word he to that statement, from that original translation, and it's screwed things up for eons. Because it put the divinity on Jesus. It put the divinity solely on Jesus. And that's not what he came here to do. He came here to show us the way. He's the master teacher. He shows us the way. But they were trying to be helpful, trying to add clarity. Clarity, not. Butterworth gives us several affirmations and techniques to release these old beliefs and paradigms. One of them in the book, he talks about, by the way, Melissa was supposed to do this, if you noticed on the internet, maybe earlier in the week. Melissa was supposed to do this talk. Well, early in the week, she was sick. Chris, her husband, they're both on our prayer list. But she's got the crud. And so we agreed to swap Sundays that are coming up. But the list of the I am statements that she had in the opening prayer were fantastic. That's how we live abundantly, is by releasing these stumbling blocks. One of the biggest, Butterworth in the book talks about one of the biggest stumbling blocks for many of us is forgiveness. Forgiveness. For wrongdoers, that's our perception. Who is the wrongdoer? Or self-forgiveness, and then accepting the forgiveness from source, from the universe, accepting the forgiveness. So he has an affirmation. The forgiveness, the forgiving love of God sets me free, and I am at peace. The forgiving love of God sets me free, and I am peace. So just by affirming that throughout your day, or particularly in your meditations, your prayer time, and we know it does, as we change those thought consciousness, those thoughts, it'll come out, our life will be different. That's how we live abundantly. Nurture your abundance by living in the flow of life, by realizing there is really nothing to forgive. There's really nothing to forgive. Yeah, there's hurts and situations that we want to focus on. The mind will keep us focused on those forever if we let it, right? Haven't you been experiencing that? And then in reality, there's nothing to forgive. That's part of our journey, is to realize nobody's out to get us. Matter of fact, everybody's here to celebrate us. The universe has given us this life, and there's really nothing to forgive. But that's a deeper lesson for another time. Once we remember the truth of our being, live abundantly becomes very clear. It becomes clear in the flow of life. I remember a song from a line of a Janice Stanfield song that says, "You can't get what you want till you want what you got. You can't get what you want until you want what you got." Be grateful, number one, for what you have. Live in abundance. Live in abundance of what you have. Joy, peace, family, friends, love, wholeness, healing. Live in that abundance. Live in that abundant life, and you will be living life abundantly. Now, I've got a whole bunch of definitions. You can imagine that I went through, and a whole bunch of definitions about what is abundant, what do we think as unity, as abundance. I'll read just a couple of them to you, but you can find that in this book, and every one of Eric Butterworth's books have something to do with abundance in some form or fashion. And a lot of this comes from the Bible verse, "The thief does not come to steal and to kill and to destroy." That's in John 10:10. "I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly." That's a quote by Jesus. Now, what in the world does that mean? That's another lesson to itself. But metaphysically, what that means is that if we try to find another path, the thoughts that we generate in our mind, I call it, will steal our peace. It will try to steal and kill and destroy. It's the negative thoughts that come into our mind. And Jesus was trying to tell us, as a master teacher, that he's come to demonstrate life and how we can have it more abundantly. So abundance from a spiritual perspective in Revealing Word says ideas and consciousness of the omnipresent supply and support of one mind. It's individual substance. That's where we live and move and have our being. Abundance steps into demonstration. So once we get this idea of abundance in our mind and in our spiritual nature, then abundance is all about manifestation and demonstration. And then there's a question always about what is the difference, or is it the same? Prosperity and abundance, is that the same? Well, back to the Revealing Word, the consciousness of God as abundant, everywhere present, is everywhere present resource, unfailing, ready for all who opt themselves through it through faith. Prosperity and abundance are hand in hand. And again, it doesn't just mean it's not just about money. I know a lot of people who don't have a lot of money and who are a lot happier than I know a lot of people who have money. It's not about money. It is difficult to define these spiritual concepts, abundance, prosperity, wholeness, life, love, because we live in the abundant, prosperous universe. It's somewhat like the fish living in the water. You remember that story I told a couple weeks ago? Two fish are swimming along, and he says to his buddy, one says to his buddy, he says, "What is water? What is water?" Well, he doesn't know what water is because he lives in it. We live in a prosperous, abundant universe. That's why you came here, is to experience that and then to share it with others. And when we say, "Who am I?" Can you see yourself as a spiritual being in finding perfect oneness with God, oneness with Source? Or do you see yourself as you see yourself in the mirror? The ego mind will tell us that's all there is, and we know that's not. We know, I know that that's not the truth, and I hope you'll find that for yourself. So I wrote this week. I wrote in the MailChimp. I said, if I meditate long enough, I will achieve enlightenment. I must admit that's a myth. That's a myth, by the way. I must admit that I have had this thought, not so much now, but in my earlier years of practicing meditation as it began. The truth is, your essence, my essence, at your very core, you were born enlightened. You were born an enlightened being, and an enlightened being you shall die. But since the birth, as I mentioned earlier, we have been layered with interpretations, perspectives, paradigms, conditioning, and the paradigms that block our wholeness, our purity, our perfection, and our pure consciousness. It blocks our consciousness to true self, all these blocks. Our purpose, our goal, is to release those blocks. You will become enlightened if you meditate. Will you become enlightened if you meditate? So they tell us that's the wrong question. The spiritual teachers of all practices tell us that that's the wrong question. You may not be awake to it, but you already are. You already are an enlightened being. So each time we meditate, we peel away a layer. We peel away a block, and we wake up more to our already enlightened self. Ernest Holmes, in The Science of Mind, says a mystic is one who senses the divine presence. And you can call that Source, God, whatever you choose to call it. And I joke about this sometimes. Do you see yourself as a mystic? We're all mystics. If you sense the presence of God, all of us here, and our head mystic, Miss Nancy, is here. If you're working consciously, living in the flow of God's grace and the grace of the universe, you're a mystic. Not be a mystic in training, but you're a mystic. So Rumi says it this way, that we have to die to life, living in this world, the divine ideas, dying into life. Here's what he says in a poetic way. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doors where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. don't go back to sleep. Remember, wake up to your enlightened self. Don't go back to sleep. There's another poem I ran into years ago. It was anonymous, and it was I think somebody, at least when it came to me, it was an anonymous poem. It sounded like it had a real hard, had a real hard tone to it, kind of like a country music song. Poor me, poor mouthing, as we say, poor mouthing. You've heard that. So the name of the message and then so this friend who gave this poem to me years ago in Nashville, and it was appropriate that it must have been a country music song because I was in Nashville, and there's every waiter in Nashville, waiter and waitress in Nashville is a country music star wannabe. Many of them are. So the title of this is My Cup Has Overflowed. See if this resonates with you in any way. My life is full of fortune. I'm blessed with friends and such. I've always been a magnet. I'm never out of touch. And as I walk my path, I'm reaping better than I sowed. I'm drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. My ride's not always easy, and sometimes the going's tough, but my focus on stayed in spirit makes me rich enough. I thank God for the blessings and the mercies that's bestowed. I'm drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. At times when I go wrong, my faith can wear quite thin, but all at once the dark clouds break and the sun peeps through again. So Lord, I celebrate each of the tough rows that I've hoed, and now I'm drinking from the saucer because my cup has overflowed. For spirit gives me strength when the way grows steep and rough. I count my blessings. I know I'm enough. I know I am blessed enough. I'll never be too busy to help others bear their load, for I'll keep drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. So hopefully, just with a few changes to your practice of forgiveness and releasing blockages of any kind that blocks you from who you truly are, your true self, we can learn to live life abundantly. And as John Shelby Spong says, to live life fully and to love wastefully, to be the best person, to be the best Christ, the Christ nature within that we can be. Namaste.